shrinks down and it's hard, it doesn't stay up.
I'll take that as a reason for
Yeah. Goss always makes us switch it. Goss. Oh. Because he's like this.
All right, we'll call to order the Planning Commission meeting of Thursday, August 6th. If we can start with roll call.
Chair Dennison,
Here.
Vice Chair Simcock,
Here.
Commissioner Brennan,
Here.
Chair Commissioners Moran, and Commissioner Yu asked to be excused.
All right, thank you. I will look for an approval of the agenda.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, sorry. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Next up is a report from the City Council Liaison, Mayor Lowe.
Good evening, Planning Commission. We have nothing to report. We are dark. I'm sorry you are not. I apologize for that, but we are looking forward to your work tonight and moving forward with our work. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Does anybody have any presentations?
I did forget to do a report out on our city council meeting about your planning commission, and that we did have an agenda item about a leave of absence from planning commission, which we negated, we denied due to the fact that hopefully your Commissioner Moran will be able to still reach the 75% even with that, without having an excused leave of absence. And we are reanalyzing how to word better our leave of absence in terms of attendance issues. So that's all. Thanks.
Right, thank you. We don't have any presentations? No. All right, public comments at this time. Sorry.
No,
We do have a
one
presentation.
we have one public comment, Chair.
Oh, all right.
Hi, everyone. I'll be brief. My name is Diego Lusich. I'm an associate at Colantino Highsmith and Watley, where Alex also works. I'm just a little bit of background about myself. I'm from Claremont, just a little bit further down the 210. I grew up there, went to high school there, and I studied history at Occidental College, just in Eagle Rock. I went to law school at UC Law San Francisco, and then I made my way back down here to be a little bit closer to family. I'm interested in all sorts of municipal advisory work, but I'm especially eager to learn a little bit more about planning and land use law by observing and attending these meetings. So yeah, looking forward to joining a little more often. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other public comment? All right, hearing none, we will move into the consent calendar. First up are the regular meeting minutes of June 18th, 2026. Were you? You were, okay. All right. Were there any updates, additions, or recommended changes? All right, hearing none, I'll look for a motion to approve as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next up are our discussion items. First is the Sierra Madre Commercial Zoning Ordinance. Do we have a report from staff?
Chair Dennison, Senior Planner Wolf will deliver the presentation.
Thank you, Director Lynn. And good evening, Commissioners. To facilitate tonight's discussion, I'll briefly explain the history of amendments and focus on the series of decisions that were made around 2020 when the Commercial Zoning Code was last substantially updated. Today, much of the code is based on the 2009 Comprehensive Commercial Zoning Ordinance Update. This version includes the 5-foot front yard setback development standard. Shortly after the 2015 General Plan Update, City Council gave direction to prioritize the implementation measures for years 2015 through 2020, including the update of the Commercial Zoning Ordinance. And in that general plan includes Implementation Measure 5, which includes an update to the Commercial Zoning Code Ordinance and amended as necessary to maintain an area of the city for commercial uses, update standards for new construction, and to include those uses it wishes to encourage in downtown area as permitted or conditionally permitted uses. In 2018, Ordinance 1401 was recommended by the Planning Commission, but never formally presented to City Council. And through 2019, consideration for the commercial zoning ordinance update was continued in a subcommittee formed by members of both City Council and Planning Commission. In 2020, Planning Commission recommended the City Council adopt a commercial zoning ordinance update. This ordinance maintained many of the updates included in Ordinance 1401, but was refined by the subcommittee. The ordinance was ultimately adopted under Ordinance 1431, but heavily amended through the first reading by City Council. So, in more detail about what happened then, on September 3rd, 2020, Municipal Code Text Amendment, or MCTA 2003, was approved by the Planning Commission with recommendations for amendments to not only the commercial zoning code in its entirety, but to the chapters involving definitions, the manufacturing zone, and the discretionary permits and variances. Those other chapters involve cross-reference updates and cleanup. Then in October of 2020, the first reading of Ordinance 1431 was introduced to City Council. The City Council at that time had concerns regarding design criteria, hours of operation, and design review requirements. The first reading was continued, and the City Council directed staff to further reduce unnecessary restrictions of commercial uses based on size and to strike amendments to the downtown design criteria. The next meeting in October, on October 27th of 2020, the first reading of Ordinance 1431 was reintroduced to the City Council, and amendments to the downtown design criteria were struck all the way through the end of the commercial zoning ordinance. Satisfied with this version of the ordinance, the City Council approved the first reading, and then the following meeting of November 10th, 2020, the second reading of Ordinance 1431 was considered in consent and adopted with no further amendment. So a full detail of differences between MCTA 2003 as recommended by the Planning Commission and Ordinance 1431 as adopted by the City Council can be reviewed by scanning the QR code on the right of the slide. It's also within the staff report as attachment A. In summary, amendments proposed under MCTA 2003 that were not part of the adopted reference include design criteria, standards of development, setbacks, building and site coverage, off-street parking, landscaping, plant screens and walls, hours of operation, outdoor storage, lighting, mechanical equipment, underground utilities, and development or construction site standards. Some of these sections are newly introduced and do not exist today, but most of them exist in some form of or the other. Subsequently, and shortly following the commercial zoning ordinance update, there was a parking ordinance update, which eliminated the in lieu fee parking program and relaxed the parking requirements for new businesses occupying existing commercial spaces. There was also a design review permit authority change from the Planning Commission to the Director of Planning and Community Preservation, in that the director has authority to elevate the review of the Planning Commission to the Planning Commission. And since this changed, the department has held the policy that any design review permit with potential to change the character of the neighborhood is elevated to the Planning Commission's review. The inclusion further subsequent amendments include the supportive housing amendments as a result of state law. That does include amending the commercial zone to include those uses permitted by right. There were also various code cleanup ordinances which were non-substantial. And then finally, the incorporation of the objective design standards for multifamily development citywide, including in the commercial zone. So to conclude, standards of development remain as they existed since 2009 because the City Council's intervention during the consideration of commercial zoning ordinance update back in October of 2020. And as a result, the minimum 5-foot front yard setback remains a requirement, which was proposed in MCTA 2003 to be a 0 front yard setback along main commercial corridors. This is a receive and file report that is open for discussion among the commission. Staff can take any questions or direction from the commission. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Any questions for staff?
I had one. I know just seeking clarification, in the staff report, when it said on October 13th, 2020, City Council introduced the first reading of ordinance 1431, and then City Council felt that numerous land use requirements were onerous and provided direction to strike design standards so that they could be considered separately following the consideration of changes to the design review permit process. Were those changes considered as part of what you just threw up on the slide there, which was 1434? I didn't see that in the staff report, but you put that up on the screen, so I'm just wondering if it sounds like there is a consideration of the design review, to amend those or to look at the process, but I didn't know if that was 1434 that you just showed on the slide.
1434 is the amendment for the design review permits, but there was no following commercial zoning code update.
Okay, so it that sort of lapsed in essence.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions? So with the recent code additions that we did, or I guess the design review, what was the big project? What do we call the design standards? So the objective design standards. That now governs where not otherwise prohibited under the code, right? So I guess the 5-foot setback today, would that be allowed in the downtown, in the commercial area?
So today, the 5-foot setback is a requirement for commercial uses and commercial development. The objective design standards contemplate a 0-foot setback when it pertains to mixed-use development. So it can apply, but that kind of development needs a certain percentage of it to be residential in order to qualify. Otherwise, it defers back to the underlying zones requirements when it's not a mixed-use or residential component.
So if somebody decided to tear down Emmys today, they would have to build it 5 feet back from the line or get a variance.
That's a very good question. Because it's existing non-conforming, that ordinance actually comes into play and allows it to continue at its current setback.
If you demolish something, you can build it back to the previous standards of existing non-conforming?
I believe there is some leeway for replacement projects, but if someone were to demolish this without an approved replacement project, then no.
Okay.
So strictly commercial, the ODS that we just approved is mixed use.
Right.
And so we have an issue because the commercial only is still subject to our 5-foot setback.
That is correct.
So like the tea house that we previously had approved, and I'm sure that permit has lapsed by now, I think it was 3-4 years ago, they would not be able to build to the sidewalk without a variance,
That is correct.
in spite of the building right next to it being built to the sidewalk.
That's correct.
Chair, can you say that one more time? I'm thinking about the tea house. Can you make?
Different tea house.
Oh, sorry.
Across from the tea house,
Yes.
there is a dilapidated commercial building.
Yes. Uh-huh.
It was going to be a tea house.
I see.
And so
So
if you
when
think
we
about it,
build-
across
yeah.
that driveway
Mhm.
is that commercial building that's built all the way to the sidewalk. The big orange
Yes.
building, right next door would have to have a variance
Mhm.
to match that same front line.
Thanks for clarifying.
Which was why we had, that the planning commission had proposed allowing that in, and I think that the code actually specifically calls out in the commercial zone. Is there a way to see if the council has an appetite to let us surgically address this? How do we do that?
We can certainly solicit the council on this at the next available meeting, which is, I believe, August 25th.
And I think the Taylor's example is just a great example, right? The rest of the building was there, they're adding on, and we won't let them build to the service. So I think that, I'm not asking for an overhaul of the entire code, just a very nuanced, very similar to what we had put on the setback of it being on the main commercial street. That would be my recommendation. Any other recommendations?
No, that sounds perfect to me.
Appreciate that.
Okay, then do we need a motion to accept the report? So I guess I will look for a motion to accept the report.
I'll make a motion to accept the report.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you for the work on that. That must have taken a while to compare and contrast those various versions and listen to the transcripts from when the meetings had all been online. I think we were all sitting we were all sitting doing Zoom meetings back then, so thank you. All right, next up is a proposed amendment to Chapter 16.18, Urban Lot Splits of Title 16 subdivisions. Does city staff have a presentation?
Yes, Chair, I'll be presenting for city staff today. Thank you so much for putting that up there. So SB 9 is, if you remember, is a little bit like ADU law. You recently did an update to the ADU law. Now we're going to do SB 9. They're similar in that both of them apply to single-family residential zones. And they allow essentially for multifamily development in single-family zones by right. And so there have been a number of amendments since this ordinance was last adopted. We adopted this ordinance in 2022. Since then, there's been 4 amendments: SB 477, SB 450, AB 1061, and SB 1426. 2 of those amendments make insubstantial edits, and so I won't be addressing them. Specifically, SB 477 and SB 1426 make insubstantial edits that don't really impact our ordinance, so I won't address them. The substantial amendments were made by SB 450 and 1061. And so what I'll do is I'll go through the ordinance itself, and the difference between the version you have in your staff report versus the version up here on the screen is that for every single amendment that we make, there's a comment bubble next to it that says what this amendment is informed by and what the underlying bill is that's causing this amendment. So just looking at your urban lot split section, and remember, unlike the ADU law, which just amends Title 17, SB 9 amends Title 17 and Title 16 because it does 2 things. Under Title 17, it permits duplexes by right in single-family zones. And under Title 16, it allows for lot splits by right in single-family zones. So we're going to look at the lot split section first, Title 16. And the edit here, the first one you see, it says, the proposed urban lot split does not require demolition or alteration of either a contributing structure or an existing exterior structural wall of a structure located within either a historic district that is included in the California Register of Historical Resources or within a historic district listed or a local historical landmark under Chapter 17.82 of this code. It basically repeats what the statute says. The edit below it clarifies that it applies to historic landmarks, not districts. Again, that's just copying what state law says under AB 1061. The edit below it clarifies that that list under the government code is limited to how that section read as of September 16, 2021. Again, I'm just copying what SB 450, the state law says.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
What is a contributing structure?
I'll defer to staff. I'm not sure exactly how that's defined in the historic context.
So this is only for historic. So does not require demolition or alteration. That would not apply to something that's not a historic
Correct.
landmark. Okay.
Right, designated. So
Designated,
not
thank you.
eligible, right? It has to be designated.
Designated. Thank you.
Can we scroll down, please? Okay, they have deadlines for us now. And if you don't mind making that edit in ministerially, I see it's saying it's misspelled. Oh, okay, got it. That's like agendizing. It doesn't realize that's a verb.
Add to dictionary.
Okay, so that first edit there is the director will grant or deny the application within 60 days of receiving a complete application. Again, just state law. So that's a quick turnaround time for us. And then that last edit, if the director denies an application, the director shall return in writing a full set of comments to the applicant with a list of items that are defective or deficient and a description of how the application can be, it should read remedied, past tense, not remedies. And again, just state law. And this is also reflective of how we handle pretty much every single development application that comes through under the Permit Streamlining Act. It's the same requirement. If we deny an application as complete, we have to provide them a list of everything all at once that we determine causes the incompleteness. And this really just mimics that language. But instead of it focusing on the application's completeness, it focuses on the reason for the denial. So if we deny it, we have to list all the reasons why we deny it, or else we can't rely on that reason in the future. Let's say it's appealed or, if there's litigation over it. Scrolling down, this was a staff level edit. So it formally read, upon issuance of a parcel map by the director, the applicant shall sign and record a covenant stating the following. And in my conversations with staff, we realized that our covenant doesn't actually say all this. So instead what it does is all of these are included in the conditions of approval. And there is a covenant requirement within the conditions of approval, which is a lot more limited in scope. So we just changed it to reflect what the existing pattern is or what the existing practice is. And so you say prior to instead of upon. Before we issue your parcel map, you have to accept these conditions. And basically they just sign, I think they just sign a document, correct? Accepting conditions.
But there still is a covenant involved.
Yes, and it's at the bottom of that section.
Okay.
So you see in section 5, it references it's an affidavit is what it is. It's, you're basically, instead of a covenant, you're actually making a representation. And you're recording that on title. And I guess with respect to one of them, it acts like a covenant. So if you scroll down, all those sections in green, they were basically just moved down to where this affidavit section is. So the applicant shall sign and record a covenant stating the following. The property was not established through a prior exercise of an urban lot split, right? Because you can't do it twice. For each individual parcel, you can only take advantage of SB 9's urban lot split provisions once. So we don't want an individual parcel to be split into 2 and then into 4 and then into 8. And then those 2 sections in green, they existed above, we just moved them below. It says neither the applicant, a successor in interest, nor any person acting in concert with the applicant or successor in interest may apply for an urban lot split. We don't want people basically trying to take advantage of this by using some kind of fictitious name or using an agent to effectuate a lot split on the parcel next to their property. And this is really to prevent corporations, is what it comes down to. You don't want corporations coming, purchasing a bunch of parcels, and then divvying all them up next to each other and getting around the Subdivision Map Act. Third, the applicant will occupy one of the housing units on the subdivided parcels as occupant's principal residence for at least 3 years from the date of the approval of the urban lot split. Again, this is intended to prevent corporate ownership and corporations taking advantage of this, so moving into residential families and developing residential families like they would for multifamily.
We can do that legally? Sorry, we can do that. We can say this. I mean,
Yeah,
Obviously.
it's in the state law.
okay.
Yeah, this isn't our language. This is in the state law.
How do we enforce that? The question we always ask.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that we have an actual follow-up mechanism for this, do we? We put it in there, and if it comes to our attention, we'll enforce it. But I don't know that we have any kind of follow-up mechanism in place. Something for the consideration for the discussion portion of this ordinance amendment. And then the last one is new, and it comes from AB 1061. And it says the application for an urban lot split does not require demolition or alteration of the housing types listed under Government Code Section 66411.7, and I put the code section reference in to just save space. But it's all those different things there on the right-hand side in the comment bubble. So they don't want you divvying up affordable housing, either deed restricted or because of some kind of rent control. So this is intended to apply to market rate residential housing. And the idea, again, is ADU law, SB 9 law, they don't have deed restrictions because the concept here isn't to increase the quantity of deed restricted affordable housing in the way density bonus law works. The concept here is to increase the supply of housing first to bring down, to balance out demand, and second, to create small units and small parcels that are going to be affordable by design instead of by law. So we could switch now to the next ordinance.
Sorry, can you just give a quick overview on SB 9 and remind us if there are minimum lot sizes for splits or anything like that? Just for
Yeah,
those of us that don't remember that part of the code.
Yes, SB 9 does have a minimum lot size and is fairly small. The minimum lot size is, and if staff gets to before I do, feel free to chime in.
2,400 square feet.
The diminished lot has to be 2,400.
The proposed lot for split needs to be 1,200 minimum, meaning that the eventual lots can be as little as whatever 40 and 60 is of that. 40% of 2,400.
Nothing. Yeah.
Yeah,
You're the accountant, so I believe you.
me too.
That's small.
Small. Yeah. Yeah. And that's with 4-foot side and rear yard setbacks. So imagine the house must be an ADU size home.
I just want to make one comment. As you were reading B4, as I read it initially in the draft provided tonight, the word require threw me for a loop a little bit. It almost sounded, I think the intent here is the application doesn't result in, right? Doesn't result in a demolition or alteration. Required, I'm not sure if there's a better word to use there. Required to me almost sounded like it was
A mandate by us as opposed to the applicant
yeah,
seeking something.
yeah. It just,
Yeah.
I had to read it a couple times, and then when you read it, it made sense to me, but I just don't know if there's a better word. But I'm struggling to find a better word, so I may retract my statement, but it just threw me for a little bit of a clarifying loop there.
That language was taken from AB 1061, but it doesn't mean that the legislator drafted it in the clearest way. And of course, the commission can always amend it to be clearer. So I agree with you. It is it is awkwardly phrased the way it's written. So if we can go to the next ordinance, please. So this is the amendment to Title 17. There's nothing actually called under state law a ministerial design review permit. That's just what we call it locally here to distinguish it from an ordinary design review permit that's discretionary. Scrolling down, very similar edits, right? A ministerial design review permit may only be issued where, and that first one, the applicant's development's not located in either a contributing structure within a historic district or a historic landmark. The applicant's development is not located in a parcel listed on a historic resource, right? So both those deal with the historic elements of a site, and again, that's all taken from AB 1061, and you saw those same amendments reflected in the urban lot split. And again, same thing, that same government code section is listed that lists the types of parcels where you can have a development like this, and it says, as that section read on September 16, 2021. Let me scroll down. Question?
And I thought, maybe I'm not remembering this. So in section C, it says, C4, it says housing that has not been occupied by a tenant in the last 3 years. So if you are renting a property, you have to wait 3 years for it to be vacant before you can do an SB9 lot split?
Correct, because they're trying to not displace renters and low-income people. This section, we had included it initially because it was in the law initially, but they took it out of the law. It formerly read, the proposed housing development does not demolish more than 25% of the existing exterior structural walls. I don't remember why they put that in to begin with, but they've taken it out, I assume because it was very limiting. Scrolling down. Now, I'm actually going to read the comment first because the comment is going to inform the rest of the rationale for these edits. Under SB 450, it reads as follows. A local agency shall not impose objective zoning standards, objective subdivision standards, and objective design standards that do not apply uniformly to development within the underlying zone. This subdivision shall not prevent a local agency from adopting or imposing objective zoning standards, objective subdivision standards, and objective design standards on development authorized by this section if those standards are more permissive than applicable standards under the underlying zone. So in plain English, that means that we can't impose development standards that are unique to SB 9 ordinances if those same development standards can apply to the underlying zone. If those same development standards cannot apply to the underlying zone, for whatever reason, maybe they only apply to a second unit because of some reason, like they could never apply to the underlying single-family home, then it would make sense. So with that guidance in mind, let's just look at these. That first section, it says this section incorporates the design and development standards in the code unique to each zone, right? And that's basically what state law wants you to do. We had a unique angle plane requirement and we struck it. And then building design standards. It says for a detached unit, the exterior materials and designs shall match design of an existing primary dwelling unit. I kept that in. And I kept that in because that's something that can only apply to a second unit on the same parcel, the requirement to match. A matching requirement could never apply to the underlying single-family home. So I kept that design standard in. That second one, it says, for an attached unit, the exterior materials, windows, and other architectural features shall match. Again, that matching requirement, it could only apply in the SB 9 context or the ADU context, so I kept it in. It couldn't apply to the underlying development. But roof decks are prohibited. I took it out because unless roof decks are prohibited in the underlying zone, they can't be prohibited for SB 9 developments. Scrolling down. The fire standards basically apply everywhere. So all the same fire standards, so I took out the reference because I thought it was superfluous. Scrolling down. Floor area standards, lot coverage, open space, all struck. Because either it was just repeating what already exists, or because it creates some unique standard that we're not allowed to impose anymore. For parking standards, one off-street parking space is allowed under SB 9, and so we put it in. That at least 10 feet wide, 8 feet tall, 20 feet deep standard. Unless it applies in the underlying zone, we can't apply it here. And then that, all the rest of these are all taken from the statute. And then I struck that fourth one. Scrolling down. Same thing, there's a 60-day shot clock for both the urban lot split application as well as the ministerial design review application. Scrolling down. Same thing, if we deny it, we have to provide them the reason why we denied it. Same thing here, conditions of approval. So they have to sign and accept those conditions before we issue them the permit. And so that concludes the proposed edits, and staff had the following requests of the Planning Commission. The first was, we had 3 questions for the Planning Commission. The first question is, would the Planning Commission like city staff to draft an ordinance to incorporate those amendments into the Sierra Madre Municipal Code as reflected here? The second question is, you saw that there were a number of amendments to the objective design standards. We took them out of SB 9. But if you want them to apply, we can incorporate them into the underlying zone. So the question is, do you want those objective standards that we took out of SB 9 to be incorporated into the underlying single-family zones? So that's question number 2. And question number 3 is, I'll actually turn to Planner Wolf to talk through the fact pattern we have regarding question number 3, and then we'll pose it.
Thank you, City Attorney. So this actually goes back to the urban lot split process and the fact that properties with a single-family home and a detached ADU are not disqualified from the eligibility of lot split by urban lot split. Therefore, where there is a single-family home in the front of the property and a detached ADU at the back of the property, urban lot split would provide that the ADU can be orphaned from the single-family home when it's split through the center and between the single-family home and the ADU. Now, up until July 1st of this year, the city had not charged a development impact fee for ADUs that are greater than 750 square feet. And so when those ADUs are orphaned, they can become single-family homes. And because they're existing and they become single-family homes, under our public facilities fee ordinance, they are not required to pay a public facilities fee or development impact fee that otherwise would be required for the development and construction of a single-family home that did not exist before. So in essence, when someone applies for an urban lot split to subdivide and split away a single-family home from an ADU, that ADU is not subject to any development impact fees and becomes a single-family home. And so the question is, should we continue to, I'm trying to think of the right language here, should we continue to allow that to process as it is, or should we require that the conversion of an ADU to a single-family home through an urban lot split be subject to development impact fees?
And if I could add 2 points. The first is, this is not a hypothetical, this is happening in the city. And the second is, ADU law doesn't contemplate this scenario, neither does SB9 law. So this is, I don't want to call it I'll call it a loophole, I guess, where these two laws converge and the legislator hadn't contemplated it. And as a result, anyone that develops their house with 2 units is going to pay all the impact fees. And anyone that develops their house with a home and then an ADU and then does a lot split only pays half of those impact fees, essentially. So it's just a clever workaround to get around our, what we call public facilities fees, what the state law calls development impact fees. So the question is, should we leave it status quo or should we amend the code to do something about that? It doesn't happen often, but it's happened.
There is one more point I would like to add, and this goes back to urban lot split and the lot line standards that are under section 16.18050 C. And then the 4th standard there has a requirement of for average lot width, and as staff recalls, this standard was drafted in essence to prevent a lot line created splitting a lot down the middle, parallel with its side lot lines, and to encourage the split otherwise, perpendicular with the side lot lines. Now, the requirement for average width is impractical because no lot, even the square lots, are not perfectly square, and this would be prohibitive even to those lots that are irregular in shape. And it would be preventative in lot splitting, and staff does not recommend enforcement of the standard as it's written because it would preclude a lot of what state law would otherwise allow for. And what we're thinking is some other kind of standard that keeps the intent of what was written here without restricting it to an equal average lot width.
And that concludes staff's presentation, Chair.
That was good timing on that, Mr. City Attorney. Okay, questions for staff before we hear public comment and then deliberate? I'm sure there'll be questions for staff as we do this. I guess I was trying to absorb what you said, and then I had a thought. I'm trying to remember what that was. Are there minimum requirements for building on an SB9 split?
What do you mean by minimum requirements?
So we're creating 2 lots.
Right.
Do you have to build, can you build a 100 square foot house? And that would be sufficient? Or does the law remain silent to the size of the house that has to be created?
So it says here, in terms of a minimum, you can have up to an efficiency unit. And I forget what the size is of an efficiency unit under state law. It's like 200 something feet.
I believe it's 220 square feet, but I think there's some language in the state law that requires the city to approve an at least 800 square foot single-family home, even if that's not compliant with the floor area standards.
But that's not a minimum of what they can build. That's just a limitation on our ability to disapprove something.
That's correct.
Yeah, so in terms of a minimum of what we can build, they can build an efficiency unit, whatever that is under state law, like 250 square feet or something. And then in terms of a maximum, I don't believe that there is a maximum in the same way that ADU law has a maximum.
It's subject to the underlying floor area standard,
Right.
But it also has that other ADU standard baked into it where regardless of what the minimum required is by the underlying zone, the city must approve 800 square feet.
Right.
But that 800 square feet, so if I'm doing my math, 2,400 square foot is the minimum, 40% of that was
960.
960. And so if you have a so that's basically a 30 by 30 lot. If you take 4 feet off both of that, now you're looking at 676 square feet. So they don't get to build out. They might have to build up to get to that 800 minimum, right?
Right.
Okay. So they can't just start going through the rest. Okay.
No.
When does the clock start for the 3 years?
When does upon recording of the affidavit and the covenant?
So if you are a slow builder because there's an entire city that got wiped out from a fire, and it takes you 3 years to build a house, then by the time you build the house, you could sell it?
Good point. Yeah, I don't think as written we have. Give me a moment to just
Okay.
confirm the
Okay.
language.
That'll be something for discussion that I was thinking about.
I have some, just real quick, I think we were talking about the 960 on the bottom here in D2. It says, in no instance shall any resulting parcel be smaller than 1,200 square feet in area.
Oh, okay.
So
So,
I think, that's, we're talking apples and apples, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So we can do the 40% of the 24, but you can't go less than 12.
then you can't do the 40%.
At least,
In that under that fact pattern, it would be 50-50. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions for staff before we have more questions for staff?
I have a question about the C4 right here. Is that the one you were talking about at the end?
Yes.
And so, could you explain that once again? Because when I read it, I have a hard time making sense. The only way I could see you could do that is front and back. Is that correct?
The intent of the standard is to create a front and back lot, and just to think about the geometry of a four-sided shape, when it comes to lots, they are not perfectly square. They're not perfectly 90 degrees, and so when you split it front and back, you're going to have one of the other lots be of an average lot width that is less than the original because it just doesn't work, and it's not geometrically possible to meet that requirement. Even when you have, unless you have a geometrically perfect lot,
Right.
which doesn't exist in the real world.
Is there any way, could we just reword that to like within 10% or a small number to account for
We can talk about that
a weird?
discussion.
Okay, yeah.
Chair, with regard to your question, this is how it currently reads. The applicant will occupy one of the housing units on the subdivided parcels as occupant's principal residence for at least 3 years from the date of the approval of the urban lot split. From the date of the approval of the urban lot split. And we would likely count it upon recording because they're probably happening around the same time.
So not related to completed construction and a certificate of occupancy?
Correct? No.
Okay. And is that what the state law dictates?
I will confirm.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? At this time, we will take public comment from anybody who would like to speak on this specific agendized item. Please keep your comments to no longer than 10 minutes per comment, including your name for the record. Hearing none, we'll bring it back for deliberation. So we have 3 questions in front of us. I should have written them down and I didn't. One is, do we want the department to basically present this back as a municipal code text amendment? Second, do we want to add these to the underlying code? And third, guidance on lot width. Or actually, no, guidance on diminished lots that have an orphaned ADU.
Right. Another way to phrase it is, what do we do with respect to the public facilities fees as they relate to orphaned ADUs?
Yeah. All right. I I think the text edit is an easy one. I think we all probably agree that that's a go. We might have some edits as we talk through this, but I think 95% of the way there, thank you. As far as the underlying code, those become big projects, and I'm curious as to what it is that we're really losing in an SB9 lot split that wouldn't just be picked up by the code. Like, what is it that is so different about an SB9 lot split that we want to edit the code because we're worried about it?
One of the standards that was eliminated was the prohibition on roof decks, and we don't prohibit roof decks in the underlying zone, in any underlying zone really, but because there was that prohibition in place that was due to the 4-foot minimum setback, and we thought it would be prudent to prohibit roof decks that were 4 feet away from a neighbor. So one solution we're thinking is that we apply a setback requirement specific to roof decks that are required for other structures. That would be a minimum setback for roof decks of 5 feet from the side yard or greater, depending on how that applies to the primary, and a 15-foot minimum setback for roof decks specifically.
Do we not have any kind of setbacks for roof decks today? You could build a roof deck right up to your property line?
The idea is that the roof deck would go on a structure, and therefore the setback applying to the structure would also apply to the roof deck. But in this case, we're talking about a residence which could potentially be 4 feet away from any property line. And that's why we had the prohibition in place. And the concern is that roof decks could start appearing on structures that are 4 feet away from the property line.
But it would be the property line that you're subdividing.
Or a neighbor that is unaffected by the lot split.
Maybe I missed this, the SB9 setback, or the SB9 changes the setback to 4 feet?
Side and rear yard.
Oh, thank you, State of California. I probably blocked that out. You probably said it. Thank you. I mean, yeah, that sounds like a really easy thing.
Yeah,
So
that example sounds straightforward to me. Does that mean we need to go through all the strikes and determine if they need to be in, or is that the only one that we should be discussing?
Are there other significant?
Practical,
Yeah. Were there other significant? Or were the other, like the angle plane one
Yeah,
is
five-
because it's
so
5 feet
standard.
versus 4 feet, right? So we're losing a foot on the angle plane. Is that what we're saying?
There's already an angle plane standard in underlying zones, so there's no concern
Okay.
striking that standard from the SB9 one. And
Fire safety.
fire safety, we would prefer that defer to the wildland urban interface code.
And floor area already was going to the underlying. Height
Height-
standards
height.
were already underlying. Lot coverage was underlying. So really, it sounds like the parking, which we can't do anything with,
Right.
the open space standard, and the roof deck. Are those the only three or those are the only two to really talk about?
I think we might want to consider open space standards as well.
Yeah, that was one of the ones
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that.
That's okay.
There are parking standards that already apply, not just to the underlying zone, but citywide rather than by zone, it's by type of residence.
All right, maybe we'll just start crunching through them and see. So as far as angle plane, that's already underlying. So roof decks are the question here. And so roof decks, we can impose a greater minimum, even though, because it's only the house that's guaranteed to have a 4-foot front and side setback. Is that correct?
It's either house developed under these standards can have a 4-foot side and rear yard setback.
Yeah, so we can impose, if it's in the underlying zone, greater of the roof deck.
That's correct, if it's specific to a roof deck.
And what is the residential? Is it 5 feet side and 15 feet rear? Is that-
It's 5 feet or more. It increases if the lot width is more than 60 feet.
Okay, okay. But five would be the, I'm just thinking we could, on certain houses, we could already put 5, but.
Well, and, I mean, we could just pick a number.
Or
We could pick
number, yeah,
15,
10 or 15.
and then
or-
you'd never be, your roof deck would never be that close to overlooking. And then even if,
It would be simple to keep the standards in place and just reference the setback standards for primary structures too.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
well, if we, I mean, we can't say setback standards for primary structures because the primary structure can be 4 feet.
Under SB 9 law, but when it comes to the underlying zone, and as long as there's an applicable standard that doesn't affect the primary dwelling, but is specific to the roof deck, that can still be applied. It's just a reference so that we don't have to keep amending each specific standard.
Okay. And we don't think that that'll be, that they'll say because the SB 9 is 4 feet that, okay,
Yeah, I think we just. In that specific scenario, I think we just prevent the roof deck because the underlying code says it needs to be X number of feet setback, and you don't meet that requirement.
okay. And so your recommendation then, Senior Planner Wolf, was that we align it with the underlying setback, so you could have a roof deck right up into the side of the house?
It would, if there was a house that was 4 feet away from the side and rear yard setback, it would require the roof deck on top of it to be stepped back further. So at least 1 more feet away from the edge of the building, and then potentially 9 more feet away from the rear as it relates to the back of the building. So you're going to have potentially a roof deck that is stepped back from the edge of the building.
Okay,
That would be the intent of that standard.
okay. I think when you bring us the municipal code and we can look at it, that we'll have a better understanding of it.
Yeah, and then we just pick a number, 10 or 15 or 5.
Well, I think he's saying that because it varies, that it's going to be consistent with whatever that. So if you have a 90-foot wide house, then there's a greater width that you have to be set back, and so it would be consistent with that. I think is, if I understand what you're
Oh,
saying.
okay. I was just thinking we could just put a saying in there that says, basically, roof decks have to be a minimum of, I don't know, just say 10 for round number, feet from any lot line.
Yeah, and so the interesting thing about what you bring up there is there's plenty of great roof decks that extend past the diaphragm of the house, right? So
Right.
you have a pool and you want to set up
Right.
a patio area, and it starts as a roof deck and continues out there. And so that would exceed, but I guess then the step wouldn't work, right?
Well, as long as we don't go, I don't know, 10 feet from a lot line. Isn't that what we're trying to do?
We were trying to keep it consistent with what the setbacks were, but do you have some good guidance from us as to what we're looking for? I would like to be able to allow people to go past the end of the house if it fits the yard. I can envision houses that have rooftop decks that extend past the end of the house. So I guess as long as it doesn't exceed what's allowable for where that's what you're trying to achieve, is not going past where the allowable setback is for that particular specific lot.
Right. The whole intent of setbacks is to provide the minimum requirement, but just because there is a minimum requirement doesn't necessarily mean someone will develop to that minimum. So they may have a 10-foot setback, and where a 5-foot is the minimum, they might put a roof deck to that extent.
Okay. Okay. Good with that? Okay.
When we come back with an ordinance, we'll also come back with an amendment to the R1, RC, and hillside zones as well.
Yeah. And it sounds like that'll be specifically for the roof deck. And then I guess we need to talk about open space standards. Are there no open space standards in the underlying zone today?
In single-family zones, there are not.
There are in mixed use. This one gets a little, this becomes a bigger project, I'm guessing, right? Because the setbacks in the canyon zone are significantly less than everywhere else. And so requiring, you almost have to have a canyon zone, open space area, and honestly, if somebody's gonna diminish a lot, SB 9 is gonna govern how much open space they're gonna have. It's not gonna be what we do. I would recommend you guys think about the open space and whether or not, make the case for whether it really applies in the underlying zone or not. I think that the coverage, the lot coverage kind of provides for open space.
That typically is how it works. Open space does really more apply to multifamily development and more like the private versus common open space.
Yeah. I would be very amenable to a recommendation of it not being included. I think that the coverage is probably what protects us. Parking, you said that there is parking that we can change, but the SB 9 split makes it acceptable to only have one off-street parking spot.
Correct.
So I don't think a change to the underlying zone is going to do anything there, right?
You could always incorporate these dimensions into a parking space if you wanted.
There are already dimensions in our parking ordinance for single spaces.
And do they match these dimensions?
They do not. So these are alternative.
So depending on which dimensions you'd like.
If you come back with a recommendation on that, we'll.
I think the only deviation is the height clearance where we, in the underlying zones require 7 feet and this one requires 8 feet.
And is there a requirement from SB 9?
I don't believe so.
I mean, I think we like smaller building rather than bigger, so probably leave it at the 7 that is defined. And the setback standards for section 4, that gets overwritten by SB 9 because they're guaranteed the 4 foot. Is that correct?
That standard pertains to development standards that are citywide, and there must be a 3-foot clearance from the property line to any structure, even if it's a roof eave or other architectural element. That already applies, so striking this would have no effect.
Okay. Okay, so then I think that's questions 1 and 2.
Yes.
And so question 3 is, if somebody splits a lot, orphans an ADU, should we claw back a development fee? What is generally the size and shape of a development fee?
For single-family units, that's roughly 65,000 in total. And for when it's charged proportionally, or for when it's applying to ADUs, it is charged proportionally in relationship of the size of the ADU to the size of the primary dwelling. And we've applied a further reduction based on the number of ADUs that are already present on the property.
Are we allowed to charge development fees for ADUs?
Yes, we are allowed to charge development fees for ADUs greater than 750 square feet, but when they're greater than 750 square feet, that amount above needs to be in proportion to the single-family home. So depending on what the size is, we charge a proportionate impact fee. Now, the idea being that the state wants to encourage development, so it wants to make it affordable. And one of the biggest obstacles to development is impact fees, the cost. And as you heard, it's not an insignificant number. The question is, should we allow them to get around the impact fees completely in some cases by basically building a single-family home, but first calling it an ADU?
Well, I guess I'm thinking about this in a different way. If somebody's going to do an SB9 split, I guess you don't technically have to build anything to do the split, right?
A question for staff, actually. When there is this ADU, so usually when there's a home and an ADU, they're sharing utilities, the laterals. If they do the urban lot split, are we requiring them at that point to have new laterals going straight to the new single-family home? Oh, we are. Okay,
That's correct.
that's good.
Yeah, that would make, yeah. Otherwise, it's still the
Yeah.
same lot.
Yeah, that'd be weird.
Yeah. I have always tried to defer the financial decisions to the city council, because this is a significant financial decision. Does anybody have a hot take on just thoughts about this?
No, I mean, if we do something like that, I think you'd have to have a timeline, 5 years or 3 years or something, because if, things change. Say 10 years down, if I split one, built an ADU and 10 years later, I decided to do it, I don't think it should be penalized, basically. But I don't know what that number is, and I didn't realize the 65,000 number was as big as it is,
Yeah, I didn't
honestly.
realize that.
I was shocked by the number, actually.
Yeah.
And I had the same feeling, like, if the intent, at least time gives you some sense of intent, that if someone had an intent to
Right.
build the ADU and then immediately do a lot split or within
Well,
some certain
yeah, I mean,
period of
that's,
time, so
yeah.
I think
I mean,
that
if
makes
we
sense to
could,
me. We'd have
if I were to have a lot myself and put just say 750 square foot ADU on it, and then next week, when it came in with the lot splitting thing, that's possible, and it looks like a kind of a bad loophole to me, because we'd just
Yeah.
be encouraging it.
Right, because we have to
So-
grant an 800 square foot ADU by right. So
Right.
they can literally just put it out there on the back and then split the lot.
Why would you do it the other way?
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah,
loophole. it
you're
seems like.
basically writing off half your house,
So-
right?
I think we try to find the line where we're trying, if somebody wants to, I don't know what the number is, 5 years, 10 years. If they do decide to do that, then there may be some back fees.
And it might help to explain what the purpose of public facilities
That's what I
fees
was
are.
gonna,
Right.
that's what I was
So I
gonna
believe
ask.
there are 7, correct? 7 different types of fees that get you to that big number that Senior Planner Wolf pointed out. And it's for 7 different purposes. There's parks, for example, general city government, public safety, sewer, water, et cetera.
Right.
And these fees are intended for for the individual homeowner's impact on the infrastructural needs of the community. So every individual homeowner places a burden on public services. And so what you're doing is you're contributing the infrastructural needs. So that doesn't go to paying staff. those monies are supposed to be used to like augment city facilities, build more park space, build out the bathrooms, buy a new police car. They're for the infrastructural purposes.
So you could easily make the case, if you were a homeowner, that you've already paid for that because you got charged the development fee when you built the ADU. And so I guess help me understand the difference in what we would charge if an ADU were on a lot, or if an 800 square foot house were on a 10,000 square foot lot versus an 800 square foot house as part of a 20,000 square foot lot that also has a 2,000 square foot house on it, right? Like, I guess, help us understand what a standalone fee would look like versus what it is that they've already paid.
So a development impact fee is calculated and charged all on the basis of the occupants, not based on the lot size or the size of the home, but how many on average people occupy the home and how much impact their residency has on the city of Sierra Madre.
Sorry, clarification on that. That's in the single family home context. So if we're dealing with one home, the way we charge for ADUs is a little bit different, but I'll let you explain.
And the way we charge for ADUs is proportional under state law, and that applies to any ADU that is more than 750 square feet. And so if there's ADUs that are less than 750 square feet and they are converted to single-family homes and potentially added on to, as may be allowed by the underlying zone or whatever state law exists, there would be no applicable development impact fee that can be charged today.
Let me say some of that back to you and make sure I understood it. For an ADU today that is 750 square feet, we do not charge a development fee.
Correct.
So you could build a 750 square foot ADU, SB9 it, build 2,000 square feet on there, and never have paid a development fee for that lot.
Correct.
Could you, if you were building this 750 square foot ADU, could you put in a separate electrical, water, and sewer feed to it at the same time? Because that's, I mean, if you're connecting the electricity, the water, the sewer, and everything of the ADU to the primary house, if you were to split the lot, you would have to reconnect all of that again to another thing.
But,
right? I
but
mean,
Commissioner Simcock, a connection fee is different than, the purpose of it is different
Right.
than an impact fee, because one deals with the capacity of the facility over at the yard, and the connection fee deals with the cost of connecting your lateral to the main.
right,
So they're covering different things.
Yeah.
right. But you would still have to, you would have to redo all that stuff at least. I mean, there's some kind of fee coming in for that.
And a connection fee does apply today.
Okay.
Well, this is a conundrum. I like the idea of the timelines of how long the ADU has been there, but it doesn't change the fact that there's no impact fee if it's under 750 square feet. And so
And Chair, it might help to add more context. There's commercial development, and there are public facilities fees that are applicable to commercial development that adds a certain amount of square footage rather than a new commercial unit. And we can think about that kind of structure applicable to residential additions in this specific context, provided that it is allowable under state law.
Yeah, state law doesn't require that impact fees be based on occupants, so that method of calculation can change.
So you're saying rather than an impact fee, have a commercial fee post SB9?
A similar structure to that. So instead of charging a development impact fee per dwelling unit, it'd be applicable to the square footage of the addition. If an addition were to apply and then we could even say that the conversion of an ADU to a single-family home be considered an addition. If that's how the planning commission's intent is.
So when we recently said you can have an ADU be the first unit that you build on a house or on a lot, that was new. Was that only for people who were rebuilding? Or was that like,
Those are for the Eaton fire.
those were only for the
impacted.
fire? Okay. I was just trying to think of other cases, because that was one of my big concerns, was always that the ADUs would get orphaned there, right? But an impact fee presumably would have already been paid because they'd already had a house on there. Okay, so that doesn't apply here. But, so this really is just SB 9, new creation of ADUs, or new creation of lots. Do we have pretty good records as to whether or not houses have paid these fees?
Yes, we do.
Okay. 'Cause I guess, because I was wondering if, like, how far back we can look and say, yes, this ADU, right? Because we've gone through 17 different campaigns where we tried to get people to convert their non-conforming or non-reported houses into ADUs, right? So how many of those do we know have impact fees or not?
So until this year, we have never charged impact fee on any ADUs.
And the public facilities fee themselves have not been implemented, or I'm sorry, should restate that, were implemented in 2006. So they've only been a concept in our city for 20 years.
And in general, public facilities fees didn't exist until the 80s. The reason is because when Prop 13 was adopted, that limited cities' ability to collect on property taxes. Cities had to come up with other creative ways to finance their infrastructure, and then they created this concept of development impact fees.
Yeah. So there are likely a large population of ADUs that exist today that were never charged impact fees and could be part of an SB 9 split. I was just, my train of thought was, is there a way to say this ADU never got charged one, and so we should start charging one? But if it's only 20 years old, I know we've had ADUs for longer than 20 years. So I'm just trying to look for a fair line as to where we would say,
City Attorney, more fundamental question. Should we allow ADU to be converted into single-family homes? Or ADU stay as ADU? Whoever that contemplate the SB 9 lot split, they have to build a single-family home.
well, that was why I was asking if you have to build a home as part of the SB 9 split, because then it gets really easy. And maybe, I mean, I don't know if this would withstand scrutiny from HCD or not, but what if we said you can't do an SB 9 lot split if you're not creating a primary residence?
You can't do an SB 9 lot split if you're not creating a single-family residence. That wouldn't, no. They can create on a vacant lot. They can do a split on a vacant lot.
And Chair, I don't think HCD would support that kind of a restriction because the split of the lot itself encourages more affordable housing in the way of smaller lots are less are more affordable than larger lots.
That is a short-term view that HCD may take that is not substantiated with data as far as pricing goes, but I understand, I agree with you that would be their position.
But the director's question, I think, I'm not aware of any HCD interpretation that prohibits or addresses the issue there, which is, can you even convert an ADU into a single-family home through an urban lot split?
So since we can't prohibit an SB9 lot split without the creation of a single-family home, can we say that you have to create, or you have to convert an ADU to a single-family home
I think so,
in the event that it's orphaned?
yeah. But with that comes the follow-up question about what happens to the fees.
If the fees haven't been paid for, yeah. I guess it doesn't solve for that part of the equation, but and we've never charged, so it would literally be a net new fee. Because we've only started charging for ADUs, you said
July 1st.
July 1st. That's interesting. I don't know if we're going to solve this part of it tonight, but I think we probably do want to think about it and talk about it some more.
And staff isn't aware of any other jurisdiction, municipality that's dealt with this issue. Okay.
I'm sure we could survey our peers, but I haven't come across it with our other agencies.
Yeah. I mean, I would like to see, I would like to understand what it would look like to force people to convert ADUs to single family in the event that that an SB9 lot split happens. And it sounds inherent with that would be having to pay a development fee.
Right.
And as you think about it, think about both sides, and I would love to see some math as to, as I mentioned, I know that it hasn't been charged before, but understanding, even under the new one starting July 1st, what it would be when you add an ADU, what your development fee would be versus if it was a standalone.
For ADUs, that number is always going to be variable because it relates to the size of the primary dwelling. And it's always going to be proportional, and it's always going to be also based off the existing number of ADUs, because the city council had passed a resolution that further reduces that fee charged based on the number of ADUs present at the time of the application. And we can come up with some math, and we can come up with some hypotheticals if that's what the commission would wish, but we cannot come up with very much more concrete examples than that.
Yeah, I think we're really just looking for size and shape, right? If you come back and say that a 20, like, and you can say the average, lot size, or the average house size is 2,200 square feet, and if you add an ADU of, 800, 1,000, and 1,200, here's what each of those would look like if you put a single-family house of 800, 1,200, 1,000, or 800, 1,000, 1,200. Here's what those development fees. We just need some kind of size and shape. We're shooting in the dark right now. Is that enough scope? I
Absolutely.
really think it's just 3 levels on a 2,200 square foot house and 3 levels on a standalone ADU of the same size, or single-family residence of the same size.
Consider it done.
Chair, also about the affidavit question you had asked. When the 3 years starts, I confirmed the language in the ordinance mirrors the language in the statute. So 3 years from the date of the approval of the urban lot split.
And so we can't change what that's with.
And Chair, to actually verify the public facility fee amount for single-family development, a single unit would be charged $76,300. And there's a different for multifamily rate. It's roughly half of that, but it is $37,200 per unit of a multifamily development.
So so I think what I heard you say is if one of the options, and we'll have to think about this, could be to consider it a multifamily unit in light of the idea that it used to be a single lot.
That's difficult to apply across the board because when we think of multifamily, we think of one building with multiple dwelling units within it, and that would then have the multifamily rate applied to it, as opposed to two single-family units here, and we're talking about up to two single-family units. Ideally, these are, or not ideally, but in this scenario, these are detached single-family units on the same lot. Each unit would be charged a single-family rate to it. But there's not, to my knowledge, any concrete language which describes when to apply a single-family rate and when to apply a multifamily rate.
Yeah, I'm just thinking $76,000 is not a small amount, and it feels kind of prohibitive, but I also know that those projects haven't contributed to anything to, I guess some of the concern I have is purchase dates, right? If I've had a lot for 20 years and I put an ADU on it 10 years ago, the present value of what you're gonna charge me is not commensurate with the house when it was built and what you would have charged back then. And so that's the part I'm having a hard time reconciling is we're charging present value prices again, but that could be the price you pay to do an SB9 split. That could be, you are in fact getting what you could not used to sell by itself, the ADU, you now can sell by itself. So I can make the case either way. I just want to kind of understand some examples.
It would also maybe be helpful to look at the study they did for the public facilities fees to understand what they thought what depreciation they assigned to those facilities. Because if they're contemplating 20 years for those facilities, that means someone who pays now is contributing, 20 years out. And so if someone's had an ADU for 20 years,
Yeah.
and now they do that conversion, then it doesn't really make sense to penalize them for any case.
Yeah, maybe
Other-
like prorated on that amount.
Right.
of time
Yeah,
or something.
yeah. I mean, that's very interesting. I didn't know that there was an underlying depreciation assumption on that. That might help achieve both, I think, the things we're looking for. We don't want somebody to buy a house, put an ADU on it, and then immediately split it. And if you do, you have to pay the higher fee for it. Versus if it's been around for a long time, that depreciated schedule would. It's interesting. I think we would only make recommendations to the city council. I wouldn't want to make this a code edit. We'll give them a couple of options, but I don't think we'll send a text edit up to them on that. That's just if you guys feel strongly otherwise, I think we can put together a couple of recommendations, but it's above our pay grade. Anything else on this?
I don't think so.
Oh, the lot width. Question 4. We kept saying there were only 3 questions, but there were actually 4. Question 4, the lot width. My instinct is I have a hard time telling people you can only build it with a flag lot one way versus a flag lot the other way. I don't know that I love the idea of forcing them. And here's my thought. There could be people out there who are trying to be conscientious about the way that they do this lot split. And forcing it a round peg into a square hole could create really ugly lots that people could do by right versus having to come in and pay for a variance to do the right thing. So I'm less inclined to have those kind of requirements, but that's just my first thoughts on it.
Right. And you can only get so narrow. I mean, you have a 20-foot, wide lot, and 4-foot setbacks on each side, you can have a 12-foot wide house. I mean, that it kind of solves its own problem, I think, a little bit. I mean, I guess, I don't know. If you had a 100-foot wide lot, why do you need to split it that way? Why can't you just have 2 50-foot wide lots? Those are plenty wide.
Are we missing something that you're trying to solve for?
Just the restrictiveness of the standard. It's too restrictive.
Oh, okay. So you agree that,
Yeah, it's extremely restrictive,
Yeah.
because, I mean, if you're 69 feet in the front and 67 feet in the back, and you try to split front and back, you can't, because one's gonna be smaller than the other. It has to be square.
well, it has to be anyway, it has to be 40, 60, right?
It's not just the lot size, but
No,
the
it has
standard
to
is
be.
is about
Neither of the lots can be less than the average of the original lot.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
if it's 68 in the middle, you're only 67 and a half or whatever on the front or rear, and so that doesn't make any sense to me. So if we want to just get rid of that, that's fine with me. Because I think any extremely narrow lots take care of themselves, because you can't build anything on them. Or if we want to put a buff, something in there, 10% or something where it at least creates
I will take direction from the planning commission on this, but I had other ideas such as a lot line that is perpendicular to one of the sides or parallel with the front, something in relation to another line, perhaps, than this standard particularly. This is to preserve the intent of a front and back lot split. But we need to also think at a greater scale here that this applies not just to interior lots, but to other configurations. And the hardest one to think about is the corner lot.
Yeah, or that giant lot on Orange Grove that split, right? On East Orange Grove that we split. That wouldn't apply here. They would have had to do a flag in these two really long, narrow Venice-looking lots, right? So I think the idea of removing it, unless you guys come up with something really creative that you think preserves the integrity, I think getting rid of that would be my recommendation.
I am fine with getting rid of it. Yeah.
All right. There's your guidance. All right, next are reports from Planning Commission.
Wait. Sorry. There was a couple things. Well, those were our questions, right?
Yeah, those were our
Did
four
I
questions.
Did I miss the point where there was a couple just minor typo things that I saw
yeah.
in the code, not huge, just extremely. I think you fixed one. So if we're at 1618-060, it's in here a few times. The sentence just doesn't make sense to me. So it says the director will grant or deny the application within 60 days of receiving a complete application. Deny the application sounds correct. Grant the application does not sound correct to me. Grant seems like the wrong word. We're not granting an application, we're granting approval of the application, right?
Planner Wang, would you mind going to the right to see what how the comment reads? Right. I see what you mean. Because the way the statute wrote it, it says considered and approved or denied.
Right.
Yeah, grant, okay.
We're not granting the application. Somebody's filing an application, we're granting approval.
Correct, correct.
So it's just to somehow,
Yeah.
Another thing the very last chapter, 1759-100, is reserved and has a note about when it was repealed.
Oh, you already fixed that.
I would, I mean, is there a reason to keep it in there if it's already been repealed? Or reserve it?
No.
Yeah, I would cut it.
So the last section will be repealed. The last section has been repealed, but we left a note in there, and so
I think whoever handles our municipal code keeps the sections in there, even when they're repealed. The section title exists. I think that's just a way to document that something had existed in the past. It's a way to show changes over time, that something was there, and when it's repealed or deleted, it is noted this way.
it could be Municode's protocol,
Okay,
the publisher's protocol.
okay.
We can ask.
It was just a cleanup.
Yeah.
I'm fine if it stays.
Yeah, you already got the remedy on there.
Yeah.
That was cleaned up. In 1759-020, the new section 4. Yeah, so like we have B, and then we have single things. Wait, is this the right one? Yeah. The new 4 has 2 things that don't seem to be an either or. So we have the development is not listed in a parcel on the state historic resources inventory as defined in public, section code 50201. The next section seems like it should just be its own thing to me. I don't know, I had a hard time understanding what it was trying to say.
For under parallelism, if we're trying to achieve the same type of edit, we should use the same type of wording. So perhaps it should read, or, where your cursor is right now, perhaps it should read, or in a parcel that is designated a local historic landmark. So it just reads the same as the one, and then we strike within a site, yeah.
Okay, that makes
that
much,
read
that
better?
makes 1,000 times. Now I see what it's trying to say. Yeah. Because it's the same first line, and the either is the second part, where I was reading it as like a.
Because they both pertain to historic designations, just one at the state level,
Right.
on a state list, and one's on our local list.
No, there's one similar to this in the other one that made sense, and this one didn't make sense to me. So that's perfect.
Planner Wayne, can you also just confirm, does this section have that same language regarding remedied versus remedies? All the way at the bottom, if you scroll down. Yep, just keep scrolling there. Yep, right there. Oh, sorry. Further up.
There's like 2 or 3 of those.
Further up. Right there, yeah. It should say remedied at D.
Yeah.
Third line from the top.
And then right above that, in B, just up above, it's the same grant the application thing as the other one. And then that's it. That's all I had.
All right, anything else?
No.
Nope. All right, reports from Planning Commission. Any reports? I will note for the record that we received the letter from Alverno on dated June 15th, 26, with the list of events, which is part of their CUP for the villa. Next up, reports from city staff.
Chair Dennison, our next scheduled meeting is August 20th, and you will be conducting a public hearing for the SB 9 Municipal Code Text Amendment. Also, hearing from staff regarding a conditional use permit for 75 North Baldwin regarding alcohol beverage license.
75 North.
That's the Rose
The Rogues Gallery? No.
Angel Tea House.
The corner, right, the corner lot below the church.
The tea house that's under new management, right?
And we have one co-enforcement case regarding abandoned vehicle in the canyon,
737 Alta Vista Drive.
737 Alta Vista Drive.
Not me.
That concludes my report.
All right, thank you. Oh, will you have to miss that? Will he have to accuse himself?
If he's within.
Oh, I know, that's on Alta Vista.
Oh, okay.
I'm far enough. away
Okay.
from that.
Great. All right, if there's nothing further, then we will adjourn to our regularly scheduled meeting of August 20th. Thank you.